Hi there, in this quick video, I'm going to show you the invoice, estimate, quote, receipt, proposal system in SwiftCloud. And you can use it to make an estimate, any of those things. You can use it to make an invoice. An estimate is something that often is then converted into an invoice when somebody agrees to pay. You can also do what's called a credit memo, which is typically used in the case of somebody paying you for something that's not yet done, and you want to issue them a receipt. So let's say it's a website, for example, and they're doing half down, half on delivery, which is really common. And you might want to issue them a credit memo at the beginning so that they have a receipt and just know that their account was credited. All of these things are possible, and it's actually really simple. Now in this video, I'm going to go through it a couple times. So the first, I'm going to give you kind of the 90-second overview, the super fast version. So if you're the type of person who just wants to play with it and kind of discover it as you go, and you just need to know where to look, then we'll cover that first really quickly, and then I'll take a little bit deeper dive into some of the more advanced features if you've got something specific you want to do. So from the top, so first things first, notice that this has a client's logo. In this case, I'm logged in as Econo Plumbing, a client who's going to be using this to create plumbing estimates. And you know, some of these might be really large. You can use this. There's really no limit to the number of rows you can have. So if you wanted to do a commercial plumbing installation that was $286,000, no problem. The system can handle it. You can be as detailed or as simple as you want with this system. So we of course want this branded to you. Right now we're on the default URL, but we do have and do allow, you just have to contact us, domain mapping. So we can do subdomains. So it'd be something like yourcompany.swiftcloud.ai, and then through something called CNAME mapping. You could even set that up as something like clients.yourdomain.com, and then this invoice would live on that URL, so it's even more branded to you. So with time, we are moving more and more towards a fully branded to you portal system, and we'll even have a login where somebody could go up here and kind of make changes and kind of collaborate and discuss with you and ask questions and stuff like that. That's kind of where we're going. We have a few limitations right now in terms of the payment gateway. So for example, we do support PayPal. We'll put that in here soon. We will soon support Stripe and a couple different payment methods. We're also going to support checkbook.io for somebody to send you an e-check so they can pay electronically, but that's really good for fees. If you've got high dollar amounts, you don't want to necessarily be taking credit cards for that because you'll end up paying too much in terms of fees. If somebody's writing you, you know, if let's say it's a plumbing project in this case, and it's $10,000, you don't want to pay credit card fees on that. That's too much. Whereas an e-check would just have a flat rate fee, it might be 28 cents or something like that, even if it's a $200,000 amount. So you can kind of go from there. And we do support all sorts of advanced options, unlike some of the other systems that are out there. We just came out of the gate supporting advanced options like multiple payments, and you could break things into payment plans. We support recurring payments. So in the case of, let's say it's if you're a website developer, you might support hosting, right? For example, where somebody we charge them initially for the website setup, and then the first year of some recurring, and then after that there's some recurring. So we'll continue to make this system better, but let me dive in and just take this from the top. So here's the back end of SwiftCloud, and this is the main drive page. So on the top left, you've got 3 dinner plates. If you click those dinner plates, that's a drive icon, hard drive icon. You click on drive and just go to add new. So in this case, you can create folders at any time. Just go to add new and create a folder, and then you can move any asset into any other thing at any time, including folders. So if I wanted to, I could move quotes into parts and inventory. I don't want to do that, but you could move you can stack your folders, and it's just to help you keep things clean, right? So within that, you've got add new invoice. So here you go. We may distill that down and break that out into subsections so you can add a quote or add a receipt or something like that. They actually go all through that one system. So even if you wanted to create a quote or an estimate, you just go add new invoice and then just set the type to that. So once you get into a folder, in this case I have a folder called quotes, so I'll go ahead and click that and we get it to a page that's like this. And here's the demo estimate that I'm playing with. This is the back end for this asset. And we have a back end and a front end for every single asset. The back end is where you make the control, you make the choices as to what's going to be in it and where you can kind of edit the document. And then the front end is what the client is going to see. So just know that that is just like our e-sign system. There's always a back end and a front end. Our landing pages, our website forms, there's always a back end and a front end to a lot of these assets. And with time, we want to kind of unify these. It just makes it a little more intuitive. And we really should add the tabs. So we'll do that shortly when you watch this video. If there may be some tabs here in the top right, just like we do with the e-sign docs, to more easily help you switch between the front end and the back end. Know that those tabs are there only if you are logged in. So the client will never see those tabs. It's just for you to help kind of toggle back and forth between front end and back end. You get the idea. So let's take this from the top. So if you're the type to, you just want to play with it and just sort of experiment as you go and just set something up and you just kind of figure it out as you go, that's as much as you need to know. You just need to know, get to your main drive page, create a new invoice, and that's it. So from there, what's going to happen is it's going to dump you on a page that it's going to think for a second, create the asset. It's going to ask you, what do you want to call it? And you can rename that at any time. So this just looks like a title until you hover it. And then if I wanted to change this, I could change this to, XYZ plumbing estimate. And as soon as I hit save, then the front end is going to display that. The only place it actually shows right now is here, although we do have an envelope system, and that's really powerful for sales proposals. So let's say you're making a $283,000 commercial plumbing estimate for a building. You probably want to include several things in your estimate, which would include, let's say, a video about your company. It could include some documents. It could include a list of testimonials, like people giving you glowing reviews and how they're happy. It could include a bunch of legal terms, some of which may need to be signed. All of these assets can be bundled into an envelope, similar to how we would do in the real world. So if you were making that same proposal in the physical world, you might show up with a folder of papers, including this actual financial estimate. This would just be one small part of the actual estimate package. And so we allow you to do the same thing. And as you might expect, it's right here under Add New. Just go to Envelope, and then you can add the assets to it. And then some of those things would be probably stock. So you've got, let's say, some documents about your company and what you do and sort of your legal terms. That's probably mostly boilerplate. And then let's say you've got some actual specific contracts about schedule and then the actual estimate. So what you'd want to probably do is make the quote first, and then the actual, let's say, customize a clone of your own template for the legal terms as to, let's say, timelines and that kind of thing and exactly what you're doing. And then some of the other boilerplate stuff, you could make a folder called boilerplate. So I'm a little bit off the rails here, but let me get back to it, which is, so if you're the experimenter type, go ahead and just add new. And even if you're inside a folder, you can just go add new invoice, and it's going to think for a second, dump you into a page that looks like this. That's it. That's as much as you need to know. At the very bottom, anytime you make some changes, hit save and then hit preview. You can also, we'll need a little section here for the actual asset. We'll add that in. It'll be right here at a little, another little section that'll be kind of beige colored right here. And all it does is just help you get to the front end. You get this same exact effect just by clicking the preview button. So if you click the preview button, it'll bring you to the front end. And the same thing with the tabs, just to, again, to help you toggle back and forth. So this back end is, of course, only for you. As we continue to add notes, and your edit history is going to be in here. And if the client, let's say the payor, once you have a payor defined, like who's this estimate for, we will shortly have discussion. There'll be a little chat thing, and that's of course specific to them, right? So that's private information in this case, and so that those messages of course would get emailed to you, but they would also show here, and you could respond through here, and that way you've got all of your communication regarding this asset in one place. So all right, let's take a deeper dive from the top into greater detail. So first of all, you want to add a payor, right? So in this case, I'm going to decide who's paying this thing. Now, SwiftCloud is a true social platform, so everybody who pays an invoice or you generate an invoice for them, we actually create a relationship with you, similar to other social media platforms like Facebook and LinkedIn and these type of systems, where we actually create the entity and then establish a relationship between you two. And that's really helpful if you have, let's say in the case of plumbing, things might start with an estimate and then become an invoice, and then they pay the invoice, and then it becomes a receipt, and then you have some fulfillment information. You might want to track what you actually did. And then let's say a year from now, you want to be able to look up your history with that client. SwiftCloud allows you to do that because everything is stored on a contact basis. So to see those contacts, let's see who's in my address book. Whoops. get back to all contacts. So under the contacts, you see a little person icon. Oh, in this case, I'm as the client, so I've got no contacts, so that's why it's not showing anybody in my address book. So that's okay. That's perfect. That's what we want. So in this case, we'll call it SwiftCloud Help as a demo, right? And it's going to ask, we want to create a new user. Oops, got to type that again. We should auto-populate that. I'll make a note of that. Okay, and then we'll actually use SwiftCloud Help. Whoops. gmail.com, and they're the payor. We could also CC them. Let's say you, this often happens with, let's say, web design or something like that, where the person you're actually invoicing may or may not be the one paying the bill, or maybe you want to invoice it to accounting. You want to create this for the accounting department, but CC the boss. You get the idea. You can certainly do that through here. Just CC them. Anyway, this green box is all about the people involved. You, in this case, I'm logged in as the plumber, so that's already defined. And which would save the user, and it's going to add them, and so let's show them right here. It may show their photo if we know who they are, if we're able to automatically obtain a photo, and we're done with that part. Okay, now we want to get to the meat of the matter, as it were. And in this case, I've got a bunch of demo stuff in here, but I want to draw your attention to a couple things. Number one is I could change the quantity anytime. Notice the amount on the right is changing. Okay, so let's say we needed 5 shutoff valves, then the amount is updating. So installation labor, right? This is pretty straightforward. To add a new item, just go here. Okay, here we have a little bug, and by the time you see this video, assume that this is fixed because I'll report this immediately. But we do allow decimal amount. So price, of course, we need to allow up to 2 decimal points. That's what we charge. But in the case of cryptocurrency, for example, it could allow additional points. So we'll just allow any number for. Right now, the system is coded to allow whole numbers only, but we'll get that adjusted to allow decimals. That's useful for quantity, but even in quantity, it could be something that you need, let's say 79.5 feet. So we should still allow decimals. We'll get that revised. You can also add in here items for sale. So let me trash this item. I'm going to delete that item. And then what I'm going to do is add in something called an item for sale. So items for sale are exactly the same. You just go here, item for sale. Now, item for sale could be your labor. It could be that you have a defined amount. Let's say in this case it was a plumber. You put in, worker labor at $100 an hour, whatever it is, just for easy numbers, whatever it is that you charge. And then once you have that, that can be especially powerful for standardizing things. So that way it kind of makes things easier, because then you basically have all these packages predefined. So if you have packages predefined, you have inventory, let's say parts on hand. In this case, let's say it's a garbage disposal, right? So I just put in garbage disposal, just hit insert product, and that's it. It preloads the price, and if we needed multiple, we could just kick that up, and the price, of course, is updating, right? So I don't need multiple garbage disposals for this, so I'm going to hit that little trash button. Now, down here on the right side, we've got more options. This is where we can handle sort of less common but more advanced items, like account credit. Let's say the person had previously, let's say you owed them a partial refund from something before, or let's say they had previously given you $200 on site, or who knows what, right? If you wanted to add an account credit, you just click Add Option. So the subtotal here shows $513.61. We have an account credit of $500, so the person still owes $13.61. In this case, I don't want this, so I'm just going to pull that back out. We could also add in things like shipping and handling, installation, previous payments, discounts. You've got different options there. If you need something that's not in this list, let us know. You could probably add it up here. I'm not sure whether these allow for negative numbers. That would be kind of interesting. I can't imagine there would be a scenario where that would ever be needed. But tax, if you don't charge tax, then no problem. This will just hide out. And if you do, then you just go ahead and put in 9%, something like that. In this case, $46.22. So here is the total, and notice again we've got these 3 dots. So if you wanted to allow partial payments, right, you could. So let's say the person wants to, it's $559. If you want to let them put down $300 down and then $259 on site or something like that, kind of allow them to break it up on their own agenda, then you could do that. That might be useful for certain projects, for example, or if you just want to get some money sooner than later. You could also even enable this later. So let's say that you had a payment, let's say you had an estimate that was now an invoice, the person owes you money, and you wanted to allow them to make partial payments. And you can put in some late fees, by the way, into the terms, which we always recommend for everybody. That way, if somebody does go late, then it's going to A, cost them, and B, not make you upset because, hey, you're making more money in the long run, right? It's worth your time at that point as a form of investment. And you also want to put in things like collection. So if it goes over 120 days, you can charge them more so that it goes to collection, and then you recoup the cost of collection. And that's a way that you can really protect your business financially. Anyway, I'm off topic there. If you wanted to allow partial payments, that is something that you could enable after the fact. You could also break it into milestones. So let's say we wanted to, in this case, 2 even payments of $279, right? Because it's $559. It'll actually do the math for you on the fly. 3 payments of $186. You can kind of break that out into low monthly payments of 48 monthly payments of $1166. It's kind of funny, but this may be helpful for certain installation plans. Who knows? Let's say you're selling Invisalign or kids braces or who knows what. Whatever it is for your business, if you wanted to break it out, this system can help you do that. So in this case, I do not want that, so I'm just going to uncheck that box. That'll go away. I don't want any of these options. I'm just going to keep it simple. So right now, we just show, as of the recording of this video, this is really suitable only for estimates. Oh, sorry, I didn't cover that. Let's back up a little bit. So we've got invoice, estimate, quote, purchase order. If you're using that, you already know what it is. You don't need me to. All this does is change the front end. So on the front end, this says demo estimate, and it just says estimate up here. Now there are certain functions. So if you create a receipt, then what we're going to do is we're going to change the buttons at the bottom, and we're going to create a snapshot in time. So if you go ahead and save this, we'll log the event of the receipt generation to this, but we do technically still need to leave it open because let's say, hypothetically, that they wanted a refund or there was a problem or that you wanted a partial refund. So you could still adjust the item, and yet what we're going to do is create a snapshot receipt and then share it to the other person. We're going to actually create a PDF. Now the receipt, once it's snapshotted in time, just like an electronic signature. Once you sign something electronically through our e-sign platform, you cannot change it, right? That's it. That's a snapshot in time. If you wanted to nullify that contract, you'd have to make a different contract to nullify the first contract. You cannot just make it go away, right? Otherwise, what would be the whole point? So the same thing is basically what's happening with receipts. So in the case of a receipt, we'll create a receipt, store it into the other person's account. Both of you get a copy, and you'll typically get emailed a PDF snapshot, right? So in the case of credit memo, I guess we'll leave that open. I'm open on these, so if you spot some issue on any of these kind of things in terms of business policies, then let us know what you're looking to do, and we'll come up with some solution for it. But we're sort of making this up as we go based on real-world needs, so we welcome your real-world feedback. In this case, I want it to stay as an estimate, and when you set it as an estimate or a quote, it's going to default to not yet committed. Now, if you change this to invoice, it's going to default to due, right, because that's the most common scenario. But you could change it to canceled or refunded or unpaid overdue or something like that. So down the road, what we'll do is we'll hook up automation so that unpaid overdue, this might happen. This might kick in automatically after, let's say, 45 days or something, and then we could change the look of this so it starts to turn into more of a nastygram and kick off some automation and late fees and those kinds of things. So we're not there yet, and but that is coming, and that's why we have it. So you've got a couple different options, and this is really just for your internal tracking. Right now, there's no accounting to this. We could hook up some export and some synchronization to accounting systems in the near future. And if you need that, let us know. Talk to us. But for now, it's just really for you internally, and it'll also display on the front end. So you've got that good to go. So let me save this, and we can update the front end. And what'll happen is you'll see the front end start to update. So this section just kicked in now because we know who this person is. So we've got a photo here. Notice that the front end shows invoice, and it shows as due. That's right. It shows as invoice, and it shows. I guess it's not showing. Well, it shows total due here. So here we've got a little bug. Assume that this will be fixed by the time you see this. It's technically not bugged if you're accepting cryptocurrency, because cryptocurrency allows more than 2 decimals. So we'll have to code that in based on the currency. I don't know that there's any non-USA currencies or non-euro currencies that allow more than 2 decimals. I think that's most common, but nonetheless, we'll get that handled. And you can kind of get the sense of what's going on here. So we've got some terms information. So in unpaid invoices, this is actually reading from the database, so that should be here in this space. And if I update that to here anytime, then okay, so here I've updated this in preparation for collections. That's maybe a little onerous, but it'll you know, maybe scare people into paying their bills. So whatever the case, anyway, if you whatever message you put in here is going to stick, in the sense that most often you'll just want that to preload as a default. You can change it at any time, but what'll happen is we will load whatever you've last used into just this specific box. Now this is where you can put something like thanks, you know, great project, looking forward to it, something like that. This will not stick. And put a little smiley. And this is visible to the client, and this would show up here, right there. So as you can see, that's pretty much it. Now we just have a few last little details. So in the pink box, this is the same as our e-sign system. This is once they've paid, we're going to send them to a payment, and then what? We need to know where to send them back. We just want to send a display message, like a big green check that says, great, we've got your payment, you're all set. That's fine. If you want to set that, then just go here and just set it to confirmation message. That's the default. If you wanted to, you could send them to another URL. So this allows you in turn to create payment flows, especially for recurring things. For example, let's say they need to get sent to a setup paperwork, right? So in the case of, let's say, plumbing, they need to get sent to a contract to be signed, or a form where you need to gather information. What year was your house built? Do you have lead pipes or copper pipes or something like that? You could also have them download a file. So in the case of, let's say there was some higher-end e-commerce. Let's say it was consulting, right? You're going to give them the package, but only after they've actually paid. So notice this says after payment. You could also trigger an email. So this is where you could specify what you want to be in that email to the client, and we will soon have sequences. So this is where you could send them to a sequence. So right now this is where that will apply. This is not yet working, but that could be useful for sending them something on day 7 and day 14, on day 21, on day 365. Hey, it's time for, let's say it's, you know, whatever, dental, right? You need to come back for your 6-month checkup. You could create a sequence that automatically messages them once a month, and then at month 5 says, hey, we'll see you next month, and then on month 6 it says, hey, it's time for your semi-annual checkup, right? So you can customize this at any time. As normal, this is all the same as e-sign. You could put in this variable, and it'll greet them by name. So in this case, it shows SwiftCloud help, so it would greet them by SwiftCloud because it thinks that's what the first name is. So this said, if this was Bob Jones, it would say, Bob, here's that report you requested, right? So this is all just hypothetical. Next is for you. Who do you want to get notified, right? So after payment, then we're going to redirect them. So right now we don't even have any payment options, and that's because we're in beta on this. But by the time you see this video, we're probably going to have PayPal, and then we're going to add Square, and we're going to keep adding a bunch of different payment options. And especially for outside the United States, we might have dozens of payment systems depending on what's typical for your area. So just, you know, those spaces will appear here. As to who gets notified, if you wanted to send this to accounting, let's say you wanted to send that to accounting, then you could you know, put their email in here. More options. This is a little more advanced, so if you wanted to, in this case, we've got auto late fee. This does not yet actually work, but obviously you can see we're kind of headed in that direction, where what we'll do is we'll calculate, okay, so in this case it's $5.59, person owes, we're going to charge them 1% per month if not paid within 30 days. And it'll just keep accruing. And what it'll do is it'll add another row at a late fee, and then we'll have late fee escalation is basically kind of where that's going. Default currency, you've got some choices here if that's applicable to your business. Default currency, if you normally in your settings, we're going to default to whatever your setting is. So if you default to, if you use Euro, you're in the Eurozone, or British pounds or something, and that's what's set in your profile down here in the bottom left in the gear, then you don't need to do anything 99% of the time. This would only be if your account is set to Indian rupees, but you're billing the client in US dollars, then you would override your accounting to whatever you want, right? So let's say you're doing cross-border business. Same thing is true with language, right? So that's going to change the language of some of these buttons and stuff like that. We can't control what you have in here in terms of this. This is whatever you want to type, but what we can do is, you know, we can translate some of these buttons and the payment buttons, that kind of thing. So that's pretty much everything. We've taken a pretty deep dive. So if you have any concerns over this system, you have any questions about it, by all means reach out to us. We want this to be real world useful. And this is kind of the early days. And we just built this out of necessity, right? We needed it internally. So what we're going to do is hook this to our recurring billing system, and we're going to have a membership system that you could use to make any membership business, whatever you want to do. It could be a gym, it could be an offline business like a karate school, it could be an online membership website, whatever you want to do. We need it internally, so we're just going to build it and build it in such a way that anybody could use it. And so this is part of that whole system. So we will support recurring billing and auto invoice generation. So in the case of our own billing, for example, let's say gym membership, even if their credit card fails, you still want to generate the invoice, and then separately you reconcile that credit card to that, so that even if the credit card fails, the invoice still gets generated, and then we'll just trigger automated messages that says, hey, your credit card is expired or declined or something like that. Go here to update your file. That's kind of where we're going with this. So if you need that, by all means reach out to us, and we look forward to helping you. Thanks. Welcome. Enjoy.